Key Out of Time by Andre Norton, Chapter 13. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by R.J. Davis. Key Out of Time by Andre Norton, Chapter 13. The Sea Gate of the Foanna. Ross raised a shell cup to his lips, but hardly sipped the fiery brew it contained. This was a gesture of ceremony, but he wanted a steady head and a quick tongue for any coming argument. Torgal, Fuanna, Unga, the three commanders of the rover cruisers, Jazia, who represented the mysterious power of Fuanna, Vistor, and some other subordinate officers, Karawal himself, with Locust hovering behind, a council of war, but summoned against whom? The Terran had come too far afield from his own purpose, to reach Ash in the Foanna Keep, and to further his own plans was a task he doubted his ability to perform. His attack on the Baldies had made him too important to the rovers for them to allow him willingly to leave them on a quest of his own. These Starmen, Ross set down the cup, tried to choose the most telling words in his limited Havakakian vocabulary, possess weapons and powers you cannot dream of, that you have no defense against. Back at Kyanad we were lucky. The Salkars attacked their sub and halted the broadcast powering their flamers. Otherwise we could not have taken them, even though we were many against their few. Now you talk of hunting them in their own territory, on land and in the mountains where they have their base. That would be folly akin to swimming barehanded to front a Salkar. So, then we must sit and wait for them to eat us up, flared Ungol. I say it is better to die fighting with one's blade wet. Do you not wish to take at least one of the enemy with you when you fight to that finish? Ross countered. These could kill you before you came in blade range. You had no trouble with that weapon of yours, Fuanna spoke up. I have told you, this weapon was stolen from them. I have only one, and I do not know how long it will continue to serve me, or whether they have a defense against it. Those we took were naked to any force, for their broadcast had failed them. But to smash blindly against their main base would be an act of madmen. The Salkars opened a way for us, that was Torgal. But we cannot move a pack of those inland to the mountains, Vistor pointed out reasonably. Ross studied the captain, that Torgal was groping for a plan, and that it had to be a shrewd one, the Terran guessed. His respect for the rover commander had been growing steadily since their first meeting. The cruiser raiders had always been captained by the most daring men of the rover clans. But Ross was also certain that a successful cruiser commander must possess a level-headed leaven of intelligence and be a strategist of parts. The Avakakian force needed a key which would open the Baldy base as the Salkars had opened the lagoon. And all they had to aid them was a handful of facts gained from their prisoners. Oddly enough, the picklock to the captain's minds had been produced by the dolphins. Just as Tina Raw and Tau had formed a bridge of communication between the Terran and Locust, so did they read and translate the thoughts of the galactic invaders. For the Baldies, among their own kind, were telepathic, vocalizing only to give orders to inferiors. Their capture by these primitive inferiors had delivered the first shock, and the mind probes of the dolphins had set the supermen close to the edge of sanity. To accept an animal form as an equal had been shattering. But the Starmen's thoughts and memories had been winnowed at last, and the results spread before this impromptu council. Rovers and Terrans were briefed on the invaders' master plan for taking over a world. Why they desired to do so, even the dolphins had not been able to discover. Perhaps they themselves had not been told by their superiors. It was a plan almost contemptuous in its simplicity, as if the galactic force had no reason to fear effective opposition, except in one direction, one single direction. Ross's fingers tightened on the shell cup. Had Torgal reached that conclusion yet? The belief that the Foanna could be their key. If so, they might be able to achieve their separate purposes in one action. It would seem that they are weary of the Foanna, he suggested, alert to any telltale response from Torgal. But it was Jazzia who answered the Terran's half-question. The Foanna have a powerful magic. They can order wind and wave, man and creature, if so be their will. Well might these killers fear the Foanna. Yet, now they move against them, Ross pointed out, still eyeing Torgal. The captain's reply was a small, quiet smile. Not directly as you have heard. It is all a part of their plan to set one of us against the other, letting us fight many small wars and so use up our men while they take no risk. They wait the day when we shall be exhausted, and then they will reveal themselves to claim all they wish. So today they stir up trouble between the wreckers and the Foanna, knowing that the Foanna are few. Also they strive in turn to anger us by raids, allowing us to believe that either the wreckers or Foanna have attacked. Thus, he held up his left thumb, made a pincers of right thumb and forefinger to close upon it. They hope to catch the Foanna between wreckers and rovers. Because the Foanna are those they reckon the most dangerous, they move against them now, using us and weakening our forces into the bargain. A plan which is clever, but the plan of men who do not like to fight with their own blades. They are worse than the coast scum, these cowards, Ongol spat. Torgal smiled. That is what they believe, we will say, kinsman, and so underrate them. By our customs, yes, they are cowards. But what care they for our judgments? Did we think of the Sulcars when we used them to force the lagoon? No. They were only beasts to be our tools, so now it is the same with us. Except that we know what they intend, and we shall not be such obedient tools. If the Foanna are our answer, then... He paused, gazing into his cup as if he could read some shadowy future there. If the Foanna are the answer, then what? Ross pushed. Instead of fighting the Foanna, we must warn, cherish, try to ally ourselves with them, and do all that while we still have time. Just how do we do these things? Demanded Ongol. The Foanna you would warn, cherish, claim as allies are already our enemies. Were we not on the way to force their sea gate only days ago? There is no chance of seeking peace now. And have the finned ones not learned from the woman killers that already there is an army of wreckers camped about the citadel, to which these sons of the shadow plan to lend certain weapons? Do we throw away 3 cruisers, all we have left, in a hopeless fight? Such is the counsel of one struck by loss of wits. There is a way, my way, Ross seizing the opening. In the Foanna citadel is my sword lord, to whose service I am vowed. We were on our way to attempt his freeing when your ship picked us out of the waves. He has learned beyond me in the dealing with strange peoples, and if the Foanna are as clever as you say, they will already have discovered that he is not just a slave they claim from Lord Zahur. There it was in the open, his own somewhat tattered hope that Ash had been able to impress his captors with his knowledge and potential. Trained to act as contact man with other races, there was a chance that Gordon had saved himself from whatever fate had been planned for the prisoners